Hello, YNO community. My name is Deanna Glenn, and I want to give you a warm welcome to YNO Interviews. For this interview, I got to talk to Nathan Matthews, who is a very well-rounded percussionist musician. Needless to say, he does it all. So you get to learn more about him, his history, and his musicianship in this interview, and I hope that you enjoy watching as much as I enjoyed interviewing.
Nathan Matthews.
Nathan Matthews. I was lucky enough to see him perform tonight. He did an amazing job. So I just have a couple questions for you. First, I want to know about your performance, or just like where do you get your inspiration from in your performance?
Oh man, that's a big question. So I went to school for percussion.
Okay.
And now I teach full time. So a lot of the music I perform, it's all mostly solo percussion music. I really like music with repeating patterns that I don't have to work an entire semester on to get ready to perform because I don't have that kind of time anymore. Yeah. I like things that are noisy, but also things that are melodically pleasing for someone who's maybe not expecting to see a really loud drum performance. So I like simple music, minimal drumming, a little bit of noise, and a little bit of, humor always sprinkled in. Yeah. I think is important.
That was really cool. So do you compose your own music?
I compose some music, and then I very cleverly adapt other people's music. There are a lot of composers who I really admire who write music that I enjoy playing. So sometimes I'll, with permission, sometimes not always though, tweak certain things or adjust them for performances, just whenever that's called upon. The music I played here, one of the pieces was by Glenn Coche, who's a really great drummer. He's the Wilco drummer, and he does a lot of solo percussion music. And the other piece was written by this guy, Evan Chapman, and both of those pieces are for percussion with a tape track, so just live solo percussion played along with ambient or electronic music, and the patterns that I'm playing sort of interlock with the patterns that you're hearing in the track. So this music tonight was other compositions, but I do a little bit of composing. I didn't take a lot of composition classes, so it's not quite my forte.
If it makes you feel any better, I have not taken a single one.
Oh, great. We're on the same.
I will not.
Yeah.
I actually had another question for you. So in your setup, in your solo piece, you had these bells next to you, and then you also had a typewriter.
Yeah.
And then you also had these other bells. So I have a couple questions about that. I want to know I want to know what those bells were. Okay. And if you had some type of inspiration for writing a letter or something, if there was some type of story behind what you played tonight.
I can start with those bells first. So a lot of the music that I sort of seek out is music that is not written for, I guess, a really expansive percussion setup, because now that I'm not in school, it's hard to transport all of that stuff. So I teach in an elementary school, and that's where all those bells came from. The piece has this repeating bell pattern that is just played on 5 notes, and we have these little bells that you can remove the individual notes. So if I'm doing something with my kids, I can each give them one note instead of having the whole bell set up. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can just take these 5 that I need for this piece, and I don't have to take the rest. And they just happen to sound a little nice too. So I built kind of everything around those, because I was like, well, this is a fixed sound, but it's nice because it's about this big as opposed to a whole bell set that I'm just going to use 5 notes for. And then those other kind of shinier bell-shaped bells were they're called Montessori bells. It's to teach Montessori students about pitch, and they also just sound really great. So I just kind of will cobble together instruments from my classroom and put them with the drum set to kind of add another layer to just solo drum performing. And then that typewriter a friend gave that to me. I was originally playing that piece on an electronic keyboard, and I had to amplify it by putting a microphone on it. But then, like an actual typewriter is a lot louder, so I'm only using 2 of the keys to kind of play these different rhythmic patterns. But it's a giant hunk of metal, so it sounds a lot louder than this little plastic keyboard. No, I had no inspiration while I was typing that. Just hitting keys because I think they sound.
No, that was pretty sick. I really love. I actually played ensemble at school, and I have to take my bass clarinet and like make percussive noises with it. So it's really cool to see like artists in the area, like yourself, using these, like being creative with these different types of things as part of their show. And that was really cool with the visual aspect.
I had no that was all Eric Wallace. I really don't even know what he did for that. We were coming to do this, and he had that set up, and he's like, "Oh, this is going to be going on during our performance." And I was like, "Yeah, can you keep it on for mine? That's cool."
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. Can you tell me like your timeline? You did band. Did you do band?
So like I have a funny story about that. So I did when I was in. I got like a drum set in the 8th grade because I told my parents, I was like, I don't want to take music lessons. I just want to I can figure this shit out on my own. It's just like hitting a drum,
Yeah.
So I got that in the 8th grade, and then there was an option to go to this fine arts school for half of the day. Like I could go to my high school for half the day, and then go to this fine arts school for half the day. I was like, that sounds great, but I'm not that talented. But I just started playing the drums. So I auditioned for their drum program. I got in. And I did that for all 4 years of high school. We just met every day, and it was a percussion studio, percussion only. It wasn't band or anything.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I had to do something in college, so I went for percussion. And the first year I went to school, I had to do marching band, and I was terrible because I'd never done marching band before. So they made me play a trumpet. But like I would just pretend to play the trumpet because I couldn't do the drums and march at the same time. They're like, well, you can just hold this trumpet.
That is so
and
funny.
March. Yeah. So that was my band experience.
That is so funny.
And this was at USC, and then I transferred to another school where they didn't have a football team. And that was so that would have been they got a drum set in 2008. So however long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. You were just like a placeholder, and then ever since then you just kind of been like, have you traveled at all?
I've done like a couple tours. I play drum set for like a couple bands, and we've done a couple tours. But I've done a tour with sort of the percussion music that I played tonight, out to Oregon, and then I did a marimba tour where I did it was like a 3-week U.S. marimba tour, DIY. Toured, booked it all myself, and played in like CD clubs and basements and houses and pizza places.
How long have you been in Charlotte?
In Charlotte, I have been. It'd be 5 years now.
5 years, and then you just kind of like found. How did this scene find you?
So the performance tonight was at Goodyear Arts. And they've been around for about 7 years. They've been in this building for about 4 years. And they have an artist residency program where every year they'll take applicants who have projects or pitches or ideas, and they'll give them studio space and some resources and money to, if you're a visual artist, make some work and show it in the gallery, or if you're a performer, work on a performance. So I applied for that and got in the second time that I had applied. And it was supposed to be in April of 2020, and then that didn't pan out, so I didn't get to start that until January of 2021, and I did an installed performance in the art gallery, and so I've kind of been hanging out here ever since then. They haven't kicked me out yet.
Well, with reason. It was really, really amazing tonight. And then I also heard you sing.
Yeah.
How long have you always known you can sing, or was it?
I've always known I can't sing. I teach elementary school music, and so I just kind of have to sing a lot. And that's something I never really did a lot before until I started playing in Bira and West African drumming, where you kind of like have to sing. It was just great. Mamadi Keita quote is a renowned djembe player. He says, if you can, what is it? If you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Once I got more into music in college, I was like, oh, like I don't know if I can sing, but I'm going to. So yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you think I can sing.
I thought that was really nice just to see like how well-rounded you are like as an artist, and you were like on your drums, and like there was this background noise, and like you had, I don't think that you talked about those things next to you. The ding ding ding.
Oh, those are the Montessori bells.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then you also had the other type of bells, and you talked about the Montessori. I've only heard the word Montessori bells, but I've never seen them before.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. And then you also had like this electronic, what was that electronic?
Oh, so that's Eric's. It's called a Mallet Cat, or I think Mallet Cat is one of the brands. But it's basically just like an electronic xylophone. So it's cool because it's like a synth, but you just hit it with mallets. So you can just set it to be like a programmed sound and play like the notes as they kind of are oriented on the instrument. But you can also like program specific notes to be like weird or wacky sounds. So we kind of did that. We would play these patterns, and it would be, the notes like as we would play them, but kind of as the piece went on. He was in charge of all that. He just asked me to play on it. This is the first time I've ever used one of those before. It was pretty fun.
It looked like a lot.
Yeah.
And then you also met. Yeah. Can you tell me more about your professor?
Yeah. So I went to Winthrop University, and at the time we had this percussion professor. His name was B. Michael Williams. And there's a running joke that most people, when they get there, think that you're talking about the Michael Williams. His first name is Barry, so they just called him B. Michael Williams. He kind of was like the Michael Williams. He was this great percussion professor. He was like, 5 foot something. It was this really small, like old white guy, but he studied like West African drumming with all these like legendary guys. So when he would like play his like drum and like sing, it was like, whoa, that voice is coming from this guy. And just like kind of as I studied with him, like I don't know, just an amazing professor. I worked on all this. I had either worked on or had shown him all the music that I had played tonight. And I don't know, he passed away in 2020, and I haven't performed really since the start of the pandemic. So when Eric asked me to do the show, I was kind of like, I would like to play some music that just kind of is a tribute to my mentor at school.
Yeah, so you mentioned being like close to him, or like you seemed like you were pretty close to him, or like you were very fond of each other. He shared some things with you. But also just like you're talking about like seeing, or the way that you're talking about him, how he sounded like an amazing performer, and that he was like just able to travel. And are there things like from, well, of course he's a teacher, but I want to know like some things that maybe that you took from him, and just.
I don't know. I mean, just like the more I've kind of performed, the more I'm realizing like, oh, I'm a student of Michael Williams. And I don't think I realized at the time that I was studying with him, he had a lot of memory problems, and it's kind of later in his life. And he taught, I think, as long as one could teach with all of his medical issues. And when I was going to school, I thought I was like, oh, this is this great professor, but he's sort of like, maybe not phoning it in is the right word, but I sometimes got the sense that like, oh, we're, having a lesson right now, but we're just kind of like hanging out. Like I'll play the piece and he'll say like, that was good. And when I was a student, I was like, no, I want to know if measure 37 was like loud enough, or if the ending, I wanted the specificity.
Yeah.
But he was, a student of he later in his life dove really deep into Eastern philosophy, and he would say things that still I kind of remember right now. When he was playing the mbira, that was sort of the last instrument he was physically able to play later in his life, because you're just using 2 thumbs and your index finger, and he would just play it before he would go to bed every night. And this is this instrument that's been around for thousands of years, and he's playing all these traditional songs. And he said at one time, he's like, I feel like when I play this, I'm playing the stuff of the universe. And at the time I was like, that's cool, I'm gonna go shred some drum set. But now I'm like, you had asked about lessons.
No, but
he had taught me.
What we were talking about, it's really interesting, what we take from our teachers. Mm-hmm. I'm a music student as well, and I actually just interviewed my music teacher, and just seeing the journey from teacher to student to teacher to colleague. There's so much that's shared, and so it was really interesting, his deep connection with his instrument and what he shared with you, and you didn't take at that time. You're able to take later on. So
it's funny because he said the same thing about he has a story where he got shown an mbira, and he was working on this really intricate John Cage percussion piece, and someone a teacher had showed him this mbira, and he's like, that's cool, let's go to Cage rehearsal. So I was like, oh man,
so do you play the mbira? It's
mbira
every night?
N-B-I-R-A. No, I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
But maybe. When I do at night, I would just think of him,
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really beautiful that he was that connected.
Yeah.
With music brought him.
Yeah.
So are you an official band, or are you more of a solo artist?
I do solo music. I used to perform under this project called To Be Sure, and it was me, and I would bring other people in to perform with me. But I've kind of abandoned that moniker. I was like, I don't know if I need to call myself something. I thought it was pretentious after a little while. And I was like, I'll just, no one's turning out because of this name, so maybe my friends will come if I just start calling myself. But I play in a couple bands. I play in a group called Gasp, a post-punk band.
Did the people that you were playing with today, were they also students?
No. So I met those guys through Goodyear Arts. Eric Mullis does programming here and is an artist. And then that was also his friend, also named Eric, who I met. He texted me a couple months ago and said, I have this mallet trio, and I know you're a mallet player. So
are you more of a mallet person or a drum person?
Oh, I don't know, that's tough. It's like picking your 2 favorite kids. Choosing between your 2 kids. I don't know, I go back and forth. I think right now I'm in waxing mallets right now, but I feel like I'm coming back around to it.
So, for someone who doesn't know what waxing mallets mean.
Oh, no, I was the moon, waxing, waning.
Yeah,
I'm kind of phasing. For this show, I was doing a lot of drum stuff. So I was look at my drum chops back in.
That's what I thought, but I was like, maybe this is some
technical. Yeah, you use wax on a bow and for string instruments. So that's a good question.
So is there anywhere that you want to go to perform, or any dream places, any dream pieces? Dream places, pieces.
I don't know. Playing here is kind of. That was when I started coming to Charlotte and was coming to art shows at Goodyear. I was like, this place is so cool, and all these really cool adult artists are doing stuff here. I'm a kid.
You said that perfectly.
That
is exactly how I felt sitting in my chair. I was like, wow, everyone's doing stuff.
So I don't know. I think that's probably it. I've kind of gotten a little. I don't know. When I was in school, I was like, I want to play big concert halls and be classical
Mm-hmm.
player.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I don't know, I got maybe a little disillusioned by that sort of like idea that is
Mm-hmm.
presented to like
Mm-hmm.
young classical players, because that's really
Yeah.
only attainable for a few people, and a lot of times those people are very affluent, or like they come from money, right? Like if you're gonna be like a, I don't know, violin player playing the Carnegie Hall, right? Like you gotta get a nice violin. I don't know. Um, uh, yeah, so I don't know, like this kind of stuff. Like I would like to play at other places like this, just in
Yeah.
different cities. I think is the answer to that.
Oh, cool. What about like dream pieces, or
Oh,
just
dream
like,
pieces.
yeah?
I don't know.
Is there anything like in the works right now?
Yeah.
I know you're busy.
Yeah,
But...
yeah. I'm working on a couple. I don't like to say too early, because then I feel like I haven't done the work. You know?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely fine.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to work on. I have done a lot of marimba playing, just marimba, and then I've done a lot of percussion playing with like accompanying tracks. So like playing percussion, like I did tonight. So like playing percussion with like tape pieces or like recordings. But there's a lot of marimba and tape stuff that I've kind of wanted to start like diving into. The reason I haven't done that is because I can't fit a marimba and speakers in my car. So like traveling with that stuff is really difficult. But there's a couple things in that world that I'm like, oh, like I kind of want to sink my teeth into like this stuff next. Yeah.
Cool. That's really cool. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan Matthews. I perform on a multitude of drums and mallet instruments and other noise-making devices.
Really cool noise-making devices,
Yeah.
I will add.
Yeah.
It was an amazing show and a really nice interview.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
you.
taking the time to talk to me today and for that amazing performance.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Great.